It must have been literally week 4 where I got feedback that this person was having... these things actually happen, and it's shocking to say it out loud after not mentioning it for a while. And like, this feels like a movie, but it was real. This person's having to go to more therapy because you're so intense.
Oh my God, shut the front door.
Okay, as a Black woman, I am triggered. And listen, I tend to be very even-keeled. I don't get triggered. But let me just tell you, that one sends me to the moon and back. Listen, ladies, if you are out there and someone is saying to you, you're too aggressive, you're too intense, you're too confrontational, or any variation of that, you need to start assessing your environment immediately and make a decision. Because that is one of those, I will call it a dog whistle. Yeah. Because what they really want to say is you're too Black. That's what you are.
Hello, everybody, and hello, our Embracing Only podcast family. Picture this. You have a voice that cuts through the digital noise of the pandemic-fueled audio room declaring inclusion isn't a buzzword, it's a business imperative. That was how I was introduced to Miss Lola Bakare, and her unapologetic clarity hooked me instantly. I am literally a fangirl for life, Lola. And today, we're joined by this Anthem Award-winning inclusive marketing strategist and the powerhouse behind responsible marketing. She's the founder of BCO, her boutique marketing consultancy. Lola equips CMOs and marketing leaders to harness authentic, high-impact strategies that resonate. She's a LinkedIn top voice in marketing and advertising, and she's graced stages like Cannes and Penn Insights for Adweek, Harvard Business Review, and Business Insider. If that was not enough, she had a whole trailblazing career before this at PepsiCo, Diageo, Dell, and beyond. And she's now the author of a book that every single executive, leader, individual listening to the episode right now needs to go grab, which is called Responsible Marketing, How to Create an Authentic and Inclusive Marketing Strategy, which was released by Kogan Page in December 2024. Responsible marketing is profitable marketing. Lola, welcome to the Embracing Only podcast.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me, Archita. It's always such a pleasure to be in space with you and Olivia for the first time after being a fan of this podcast. It's such an honor. And I have to say, I've seen people say this when they go on Club Shay Shay. So I'm going to put you in that ether right now of success, that's the best intro of themselves they've ever heard. And this is the first time I'm saying it. That's the best intro I've ever heard anyone do.
Oh, that
really?
means a lot. I was like, Lola, it lets you take all your flowers. You're truly brilliant, Lola. And I truly mean it in every single interaction I have with you. I want to start back to that clubhouse room where I first heard you. And I want to ask, we were in the height of the pandemic, and Lola, in every room I entered, people were just shouting things about everything that was happening, we were in the height of George Floyd, in the height of just talking about race and inequality and inequity and everything out there in the open. But whenever you spoke, everything you said always landed. So what about that moment in time? I don't know if that was that moment, because you've shared so many stories from when you were young and everything else. But what about that moment made you realize that your voice could shift rooms? And how do you hold on to that now?
There's a lot. They say when you're prepared, you can take advantage of the luck that happens in your life. And I think without knowing, I was preparing for that moment. And not to be dramatic, but honestly, to be a little dramatic, my entire life and my entire career. I'd always known that I saw things that other people weren't seeing as a Black woman marketer in the room, when there wasn't always one. And literally for decades, there was no platform to really do much about it, other than say things that in some cases upset about the truth, and listen and watch and learn and do whatever job I was meant to be doing. But there was always this sort of thinking percolating in the background. I also happen to be an English major. One thing you didn't mention is I have an MBA from NYU Stern, and there I was on the school paper. So this idea of writing and sharing and analyzing, thinking to synthesize it for people has been a theme in my academic life. and also in my marketing career, because in a lot of ways, that's what marketers do. So there was all that kind of preparation, but it got to a point where probably about halfway into my journey as an independent consultant, I started to feel really unfulfilled. Like I'm making a lot of impact with very small groups of clients. Their business, is doing really great because it's stuff I'm doing, but I'm not getting any visible recognition from it because that's not how consulting works. It's their work. You're empowering them. And I love that part, but I did miss being the public face of what I was doing. And it really started to affect just my energy level to where I had friends who were like, and one friend in particular, you really need to start expressing yourself. Like you can just see that there's so much in you that's not coming out and starting to affect like how you feel and the extent to which you can show up as yourself. So long story short, at that moment, when the pandemic happened, I had just started my first ever coaching cohort to start to productize my thought leadership and to start to figure out what my voice would be in a way that I could have a website, whatever it's going to be, a blog, whatever. I didn't even think about what the exact place was going to be that I was going to express myself. I just knew I needed to do this, but I needed structure. And so that friend introduced me to the coaching program that really changed my life. And that just happened to be in the spring of 2020. Because everything shut down, I was finally able to do all of my work from home. And there opens up more time to invest in what I was already had decided I was going to build. And so when we all started using Clubhouse in those next, call it a year, 18 months, 2 years, where it was like this really special thing.
Yes.
All that self-work that I'd been doing for the first time ever. I'm almost like a petri dish for me, a lab where I could workshop things, a place to figure out what I wanted to even talk about, what I cared most about, what lights me up. And it wasn't even happening consciously, but like it was from that inherent need I had to connect as well, because that time was very isolating.
Yes.
So there were so many things that you couldn't ever plan coming together that created this perfect storm that just brought me to the full power of my voice. I truly believe we may not use the app anymore, but it was a transformative platform for me and really directed me towards everything I'm doing in my life right now, as far as becoming confident in my abilities, the sort of natural abilities that I just had never really focused on honing. And from there, the rest was history.
Yes.
I love that. And I feel like as you're talking, so many themes that we talk about all the time as Archita and I are coaching women just come up. One, it was a feeling. You were restless. So your emotions were speaking to you. You didn't really know where you were headed, but you knew that you needed to do something, that exactly what you were doing in the beginning there wasn't it, right? And then you just started to do the work and you found your way. And I think it's such an important message because a lot of the women that we talk to that are in the beginning phases of their journey get so paralyzed about not knowing what's next. Girl, just put one foot in front of the other, commit to doing the work. The path will reveal itself is essentially what I'm hearing you say.
Oh, yeah. And like, we need to tell them, you don't know I promise you don't know what's next. Even when you think you know what's next, you don't know what's next. I don't know what's next. My mom just turned 70. She doesn't know what's next. This is the human condition. And it's also the human condition that we hate that about the human condition. And especially as professional women in this context, in the United States and globally, I'm sure everyone listening to us globally can relate to this too. It's also socialized out of us to be comfortable with the human condition. So there's a lot of odds against us, but we really have to get comfortable with the idea of living one day at a time with our anxieties and our fears and not letting them, like you said, paralyze us. Because the only regret I have is that I avoided taking that step towards doing this kind of work for so long.
Ladies, audience, hello, mic check. I hope you heard that. The only regret is not taking the step. So if you're sitting there and you're stuck right now, here's another woman who is killing the game telling you, just take the doggone step. It'll be fine.
And it doesn't even matter which step. It's literally, but the only thing, because I'm sure people go, well, how do I know which step to take? One that isn't in your head, in your mind by yourself. That's it. Seek help somehow.
Do it.
Lola, there was a post you had recently or sometime, I can't remember. You said logic floats away when fear takes over. And I just literally almost fell off my chair. And that was so real. And it's exactly what so many women like constantly share with men, actually across the board, share with us when they know what you mentioned, that restlessness. They have that restlessness. They have this sense of momentum that is requesting them to propel themselves forward. But their sense of all logic goes away because they're so fearful of that step. Was there like a moment for you, Lola, which was such a scary leap where fear almost won? And then you're like, bam, you like slapped it back to logic.
When I decided to leave my last corporate job, which was funny enough, also my least corporate job. So you mentioned all the Fortune 500s I've worked at. The one you left out was the last place I was, which was a digital news startup called The Daily Dot. And if anyone wants to hear the story about my time there, it's on Campaign US. You can look it up. I name names, that's the only time I've ever done that. You deserved it.
Oh God, I love your style.
And yeah, that was my dream job, like literally. What I thought my future was going to be, the thing that we all, like younger women, younger people, might think that they have to have a plan and know what's next. Yes, it's good to have a plan, even if you know it might not work out that way. But the problem is sometimes when you have a plan, you really believe that's what's going to happen. So I decided to leave Dell. I took an elected buyout when that opportunity came up. And it was a beautiful one because it's like you've got 6 months of salary. I told myself, if I can find another job, my dream job, what I always want to do, something at the intersection of marketing and publishing, English major marketer, I'll take it. But I have to find that job before I leave. I got the Daily Dot job the day I had to decide. It was in Austin, Texas, where I was living at the time. It was a high growth startup that was all about internet focused journalism of quality. Like the real journalism of the internet age was one of our taglines early on. It was just so perfect. I loved working with the journalists. I had a great relationship with so many people there. The reality was the relationship between myself and the founder CEO was extremely toxic. That was the one part that didn't work. He didn't like me. That's just it. We don't even have to get into it. But what I learned is I should have known from day one, because I actually talked about this at the Equality Lounge at Cannes last year. My mentor who referred me to who I worked with at Dell, she didn't tell me till later because she saw how excited I was. But she was like, yeah, I wasn't sure about that from the beginning, because the first thing he asked me was, how do you get her to tone it down?
Oh, hell no.
Oof. Wait, so you didn't know, let me just clarify. You did not know that comment had been made, correct?
Not until everything went bad.
Not until after. Very interesting.
So little things like, oh, Lola, you're always making a fuss. Well, the other way to say that is, oh, Lola, you're always bringing a lot of energy into this 3-person marketing team that we have to try to create an identity for this brand. Oh, Lola, you're always making us go from 5 million unique visitors a month to 20 million. Just such a fuss. It's a fuss is great unless it's me. Right. And it was the me involved in all the success that made it irrelevant. Well, we won't spend a ton of time on the details there, but the decision to leave was very scary because I had never thought about not having a regular job. That was just something that never occurred to me. I didn't have a vision of wanting to be an entrepreneur, be an independent freelancer, be a consultant, any of that. I just always thought that what you do in the day is you go to work. And so that decision to leave that job without a job and rely on what had started to happen, which were people asking me for advice and then people offering to pay me for it, that started to happen. I knew I could replace my income, but I didn't know for how long. And I had to, at the end of the day, make that decision, because it was one of those things where, and I think people listening can probably relate to this, it was them or me. It was my sanity or staying at the job. It was my self-respect or staying at this job. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I decided that it was time. And so that was very difficult to walk away from a dream that even to the very end, so much of it was so good, but enough of it was bad that it wasn't healthy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
I want to double click on this topic just a little bit. I know you're trying to steer away from it, but
no, if it's useful,
it is so useful because right now in this moment, Lola, I cannot tell you, I must have spoken to half a dozen women this week that are wrestling with this particular topic, right? And I come at it from a little bit different of a direction, but I think what I want them to hear from you is what was happening that made you realize that even though in your mind this thing was your dream, but these things were happening to you, whatever those things were on a daily basis, that made you reflect and have that chat with yourself that it's them or me, right? Because a lot happens before you get to the point where you realize
things happen.
Okay. But I think the pattern recognition and when to stop and say,
important.
okay, it's them or me, that's what I want people to recognize.
I love the way you frame this. So I'll actually start my answer with one of the really important points I think it's important that I make in the book, which is that there are no right or wrong decisions. And I truly believe this. There are only defensible ones. And in that same mindset, when you start to experience things happening to you that are not defensible, nobody can explain why this is okay. I was the youngest person on the executive team. I was the only Black person on the executive team. After the other woman who was on the executive team quit, I was the only woman on the executive team. So we would have these quarterly board meetings. Ran out in a really nice conference room down at ET Austin. It was like a really fun experience. The first couple were really super energizing and fun. And what I liked about those meetings is that there was throwdown. It could be chaos. Anyone's ever been part of a startup where you've got a limited budget and especially if it's one person's money, that gets very interesting. But there's other people who they've decided to share decision making with. Shouting matches. I remember the CEO and the CTO used to go at it to the point where they were standing up, yelling at each other, walking out of the room, drama. I'm comfortable with confrontation. As to me, that's sometimes you just have to be in the emotion of a thing. Oh, but when I got into one, I didn't stand up. But when I had somewhat of a disagreement in a board meeting, that was the last one I was ever invited to.
That's something.
So, who has a right to be fully human? Number one piece of evidence, not me, in that space. And so there's nothing that can make up for that, where the people who are in charge of your career, the people that you're reporting to, think that way and don't think they do. Of course, it's Austin, Texas. Everybody believes that they're like the most liberal person ever. I've had way better experiences working for super conservative clients than I did in that super liberal environment.
Can we hear that? Because I can't tell you how many people had that exact experience. Continue, but I just...
Yeah, and I may very much disagree with your beliefs and politics, but I can work with you if you acknowledge my humanity to some extent and the humanity of other people. That's the line. And it was crossed. So that's one example. Another one that I'll share is that a lot of the people listening will relate to is when you are blamed for something that couldn't possibly be your fault. Like somebody being bad at their job. Oh, wait, I come to find out the reason why my job was created So they had a head of PR, they never had a head of marketing. Kind of wasn't available the way in a news organization and a startup environment, like the head of PR needs to be, or create some sort of ecosystem that has some level of 24/7 availability. So we have young reporters who are getting calls from MSNBC and don't know what it means to do an on-camera appearance, and they need someone to help them, and they call you and you're like, it's Friday night, I'm not answering my phone, I'm off work. So this is the sort of thing that was going on before I got there, I learned. And I'm like, all right, MBA mode, let's tighten it up. What do we need to do? What do we need to do? Who do you need? Who do you need to hire? How can I help? Like, how do we fix this? My input wasn't wanted. It must have been literally week 4 where I got feedback that this person was having these things actually happen, and it's shocking to say it out loud after not mentioning it for a while. And like, this feels like a movie, but it was real. This person's having to go to more therapy because you're so intense.
Oh my God, shut the front door.
Okay, as a Black woman, I am triggered. And listen, I tend to be very even keeled. I don't get triggered. But let me just tell you, that one sends me to the moon and back. Listen, ladies, if you are out there and someone is saying to you, you're too aggressive, you're too intense, you're too confrontational, or any variation of that, you need to start assessing your environment immediately and make a decision. Because that is one of those, I will call it a dog whistle.
Yeah.
Because what they really want to say is you're too Black. That's what you are.
And that's exactly what you're saying when you talk about making a fuss and toning it down and all of these things. Because at the end of the day, let's go back to defensibility. And so I hope everyone listening can like start to see how that framework helps you see what's happening to you if you're getting into a place where you gaslight yourself into believing maybe it is you, which happened too. I wasn't even 30 yet at this point. Like, I just thought when you did a good job, you got rewarded. I still thought that. I didn't realize that there was anything else. But this was sort of like, okay, so I'm intense, and yet look at the results. Isn't that what you want? No. So there's nothing defensible about critiquing. And yeah, I guess in some ways you want someone to show their work when they're doing math. But it's like, I got you to the end goal. The internal customers that matter are happy, the journalists. The person who's struggling to figure out how to do their job is unhappy. What does that have to do with me?
Yes. I think your point to indefensible, or what is defensible when that leaves the building, is such a good one. And I've never quite thought of it quite that way. But I want our audience to really take that as food for thought. Because some of the things that you're mentioning here, I've heard this week, literally this week, talking to ladies. And you're absolutely right. What it does is it makes you question your own self-worth. You start to feel crazy. You're like, did I mess this up? Was that really? Did I come off too? And the minute you start to go down to that death spiral, ladies, Archita and I were just talking about it. These toxic environments start to chip away at your self-worth bit by bit by bit. And the longer you stay in that environment, okay, let me just tell you what happens in your brain. And Lola, you said it, but I want to break it down from a neuroscience perspective. What is happening in your brain is your brain is detecting threat. Okay. And whether you're being robbed or it's a toxic workplace that's making you question your sanity, your brain registers the threat in the same way. And what it does is it sends you into self-protection. It sends you into shutdown. Oh my God, we have to survive this. And when your brain triggers into self-protection mode, guess what gets shut off? Critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, innovation. Yep. This is scientifically proven, you guys. We're not just talking about our experiences here. Google it. There's lots of articles on it. Your brain literally shuts down as just like, how do we survive? It will kill you bit by bit the longer you stay there. Get out now.
Yep. Here's the thing. I loved hearing that. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that and really absorb the science of it. That's the first time I've heard it broken down like that. But when you say that, it makes me remember the many ways. It's like a multi-front attack of trying to get you to that point of losing your ability to think critically. And one of the things that happens, so another data point people can look out for, is distractions. This whole thing was a distraction. If now Lola's worried about making sure this person isn't upset, which is like, I'm not the therapist. Like, I'm glad you have a therapist. Like, when I first got called aside to talk about. I thought it was just an FYI, like she might be out of the office more often. I'm like, okay, great. I'm glad she's like doing that. Then it's like, no. I need to ask you how you can help make it less difficult for her. And I'm like, I didn't see that on the job description. Whoa, okay. If you want to distract a almost 30-year-old woman, I don't have a family. She had 2 children. I didn't. I thought, well, then my mind's going, well, I don't want like her kids to like suffer because of what I'm doing at work. I really do need to figure out how to make sure I'm not like ever calling her past 6 o'clock, even though we're like a team of 2. Or maybe if I email her, but that might bother her too. I don't know. Like, I need to figure out what's going to make her comfortable. Well, she doesn't ever want to talk to me because she doesn't like me. But maybe I need to take her to lunch. And it's literally, these are things that I did. I went through this entire campaign of winning this person over who wasn't being asked to similarly engage in any effort towards building a relationship with me. Why does she matter more than I do?
You hit something that Elaine Lynn Herring shares with us, and it's in her book as well. And it's for everyone listening here, is when you start noticing that you're silencing parts of yourself for the comfort of others, get the hell out of there and run. Shoes or high heels or no high heels on, run the hell out of there, because that's what we don't recognize, because we have been conditioned to silence parts of ourselves just by first being women, Black women even more so, in every damn space that probably occupied. And then when you're an only at the table at all the different intersections that we all 3 of us hold space for, when we enter, the room is already telling us, shut up, like we'll let you know. And so the thing is that when you notice that, you can't create that space and you're constantly silencing yourself, don't wait for another sign. Don't wait for someone to turn things around or like, oh, it's going to get better, because people hold on to some random hope and lose complete agency for themselves because they hope someone else will come rescue them from this feeling. You're being held hostage in your own feeling of silencing yourself. And I know a lot of folks talk about this all the time. Like every single episode you mentioned there, I should send you the 3 ethics committee submissions I made when I went through my own journey of workplace bullying and harassment. Like literally, you could not have said it any differently. It was such similar experiences, which is insane. And we see this all the time in the work we do, Lola, at Speak Out as well. Women are constantly experiencing this, but most of them, and I have to be careful because there's a lot of privilege as well to be able to then be like, okay, I'm going to get out of here. But all shared,
we have to make sure we do address that issue, yeah.
Because that's very important, right?
Not everybody can.
Not everybody can, because one of the things I always have to recognize is in the US versus Europe, if I were to be in a toxic environment and I choose to leave, I still get healthcare. That's huge. Okay, that's such a big part of every damn decision a human has to make, right?
Exactly.
Like in so many ways. A friend of mine back in the US might not be able to make that choice because they have maybe an aging parent to take care of that's on their healthcare, or family members to take care of, or themselves that alone, right? But hold on, I know where Olivia's going. Hold on. I know where you're going, but I want to share this, is that while the concept of privilege exists, we all have to recognize we have a choice. We can make the damn choice. We can make choices, but we think in these situations we have no choice. And then that's what turns us into this fear.
Actually, I'll just add there, even if the choice, and this is what I recommend to people who are under constraints that make it in their minds, in their decision framework, which is super valid, indefensible, if we use that word again, to leave a particular financial setup at any given moment. That's when the choice is, well, how much of you do they get? You can get my body during these 9 hours, but you're not getting my soul. I've never done work without my soul before. I don't choose to ever operate that way. I hope I'm never in a position to have to operate that way. But that could have been a solution. I could have done that work at 30%, and they would have been probably happier, quite frankly.
Ladies are both so right. And I knew our Cheetah knows me well enough to know where I was going. We all have choices. No one is saying, because I couldn't, right? I left a toxic environment, right? And I may have jumped from the frying pan to the fire, but well, that's an episode for another day. But I left a toxic environment, but I did not have the financial freedom to say, I'm just going to quit this job, to hell with it, and I'm going to figure it out. But what did I do? Exactly what you just said, Lola. You're getting 20% of my brain space. 80% of my time is now spending by plotting my way out of here.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that when we say get the hell out, it's like drop everything, burn the bridges, torch everything, and leave today. No. When we say get the hell out, we mean make a decision that this is no longer serving you and you are going to move into a different space. And then you start the work, you start the steps to move into a different place and eventually exit, right?
Yeah.
But the first things first, when we say get out, is you as a human making the decision that you can no longer stay here. They mean you no good. You cannot succeed here. You need to find a way out, and then you take action, right?
And I would say even more foundationally important, before you even get to the you need to leave, is you deserve better.
That's
You
it.
deserve better. You do.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you're a dishwasher in a restaurant or a CEO. If you are being mistreated, you deserve better. And there's
100%.
somebody who will put you in that same job and treat you better.
Yes.
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 So I want to pivot just a little bit because we're coming a little bit close to time here. So Lola, Archita and I discuss this all the time. And there's a little model that I like to use. It's the results pyramid. And it basically says that your experiences will drive beliefs. Your beliefs then drive your actions. And then you get some result, positive or negative, from this sequence of events. Okay. So when you have an experience like you had that took a chunk out of your soul, that made you second guess yourself. Who are you? Are your tactics actually good? Are you actually good at your job? Oh my God, are you offending the CEO? Maybe you are too intense. When it chips away at you and it starts to make you form these beliefs about yourself, long after you've moved out of that space, those thoughts still plague you. So now that you have had arguably not just a measure of success, but extreme success, having moved out of that space that does not serve you. Can you talk to our audience about how you deal with those moments in your journey today, where those old experiences pop up and these unresolved beliefs start to come to the surface? How do you manage it?
Not alone. And that's the key. There was certainly a period of time where I tried to continue to logic my way through things, even well into my consulting journey. Because anybody who works as an independent consultant knows that you can have a consistent client for a long period of time, an anchor client, which I'm lucky enough to have. I'm not going to name them here because they're very private. But so many people come in and out of that place. And not all the people coming in and out are representative of that place. And so you can experience similar energetically things, even in an environment where you're very empowered. And in that one instance where an individual who ended up losing his position at my anchor client, but I was experiencing that sort of thing, like questioning my abilities sort of thing, putting constraints sort of thing that didn't make sense. And again, the win over campaign idea came back to me. And I went through another one of those campaigns and I didn't really connect the dots until much later on. And I'm still with them, by the way. They're wonderful. But I knew that was probably because I didn't have anyone to workshop it with or think to bring it up to someone outside of myself in terms of, is this right? It was more like, oh, I need to figure this out. I need to. But now in this season of my life, when those things happen, I know I really need to fully surrender to like the sounding board of it all.
Yes.
And accept the help that you get. Like, I'm much better. This is just a good example of like practical things. I do tend to overthink a little bit. You saw me like with my background before we started. So if I'm going to do something really important, I like to have good people around me. That's a recent decision I made, starting with my Australia speaker trip last year. I'm not going to travel alone anymore when it's like the stakes are really high, because I know that I'm better when I have that person or people rallying around me, getting me out of my head. So I want to make sure I have that support system when I have these really big things so I don't spiral. And that just works so well. You don't have to handle it alone. Oh, okay. So the solution is not me. Great.
I love this so much.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just like, I love it too much because I'm experiencing this. I'm 2 years into my solopreneur journey, right? And when when you left corporate too, you were like in leadership positions where you're expected to have the solution. You're expected to calm the seas. So one of the things I left my team with is that also recognize that your leader needs help. Because when they realized I was leaving because I felt bullied, I felt harassed, I felt like not all of these different things, they were shocked. They were like, how is that possible? Like, you're always standing up for us and everything else. And I was like, but sometimes the people who are up there speaking and advocating need the help as well, right? And we don't know how to ask for help. And that was one of the biggest learnings. And I still struggle with it because there's huge vulnerability associated with that when you are, in this solopreneur, like whatever, you're on your entrepreneurial journey and people see glimmers of success, right, on social media, blah, blah, all this stuff, but they don't know the absolute
They see the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah, the raging madness that you're dealing with below the rest of it. And then we're constantly in this need for motion. Olivia and I were talking about this earlier. And today I had lunch with these two ladies who are part of that support system now. So when I'm just like, I don't know what the hell is going on. There was a shitty situation yesterday. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. They asked me this question. They're like, so what's going on with the business? And they wanted me to list out like, boom. But I'm in the season of life right now where I'm like, I feel a shift in energy where it doesn't have to be all of these different things. It actually needs for me to just sit with all the things I have going on to see where I need to go. Right. But there was that space. And I had to say it out loud because I wrote it in my journal. It didn't matter because it was in my subconscious. But having those spaces is so critical because otherwise you will go into the death spiral of the other toxic behaviors we learn in corporate, which is performing for love. Right. Let me be I want what is it called? Highly overachieve, like all the stupid shit. And you feel like you can constantly perform for love.
I know we're closing. Archita's going to give us
we might need a part two.
We need a part two.
I really think because part one was like being a woman in the workplace. We don't even need to talk about responsible. Funny enough, I'll give you the exclusive. This is going to be what my next book is about. I haven't landed on anything timing or anything like that yet, but it hit me. And the working concept is the future of feminism. Because there's a lot of questions about what it is. And a lot of people who even like to use the word are confused. They're confused. And I want to clarify some things. I can't wait for this. So this is a really important moment because, again, like we talked about with Clubhouse, the work comes from workshopping. And that just never happens alone, really. Like this moment that we're all spending together with your audience will shape the ideas that become that project. So that's where this conversation was supposed to go. We can do part two, talk about responsible marketing.
Buy the book. You're going to be a responsible leader. Go buy the book and do the work that's in the book.
You're right. Because literally it is a textbook. This is what I love about my first publisher, Kogan Page. They focus on textbooks and business books that can serve as both at the same time. So we were really encouraged to write. When I say we, because I have a good friend, and I'll just plug her book here, Dr. Anastasia Gabriel. If you haven't seen her post about leaving her corporate job that just dropped this week, you got to check that out.
I did. It was brilliant.
Wait, I'm sorry, Lola. Can you say her name again one more time for the audience?
Dr. Anastasia Gabriel. And this is her book.
I follow her. We're going to get Peppa the show notes with her book as well. So both the books, awesome. I highly recommend. They're amazing.
So yeah, when I say we were writing around the same time. And this is another funny one. I remember, and she told me, I don't even remember this, but I guess I gave her the information or sent a referral to her. She could have gotten any publisher she wanted, but I guess I was involved in the introduction to these guys. And her book came out like a year and a couple months before mine.
Right.
I took so long. But that's just another beautiful thing where it's like your timing is your timing and it really doesn't matter. Still proud of what I put out. And I'm even prouder that a friend of mine from that referral could get something so amazing and award-winning out on a faster time frame. It just is what it is. So that's a side note for everybody to be comfortable with your timing, and the work takes the time that's going to take. And especially in your first book, you do not know how long it's going to take. When they said, can you do it in a year? What do I know? Sure. No, I couldn't. So that's an aside. But yeah, I got sidelined there. What were we even talking about? Oh yeah, the second book, the first book, the textbook. Yes. Okay. So it is in a format that is very like workshopable, toolkit, Lots of takeaways, very actionable, and a fun read. I wanted to make that the case too, because I think fun is important. It's one of my core values. The work should be fun, and fun informs work, or something like that. Anyway, we've gone a lot of places, but that is one of the sort of 6 core values that I talk about on my website as well. And yeah, it's autobiographical in many places. There's similar stories like the ones we've discussed about my experience from more of a racialized perspective in the book. Spoiler alert, there's one that's really a mic drop in the beginning of the chapter called Cultivating Cultural Literacy. Yeah, so in the beginning of Cultivating Cultural Literacy, there's a story. I'll tell it off recording to you guys, but everybody who's interested in the book, if you want to test out whether or not you enjoy it, read the intro, which is available on Google Books to download for free. And then you can anticipate similarly mic droppy personal story stuff in that chapter, which isn't available for free, but worth getting the book for.
No, go buy the book. My book is waiting in my mother-in-law's home in Grand Haven, Michigan. I get it in April. I can't wait. I can't wait to read it. I really recommend everyone to get the book. Like, it's not just for marketers, because guess what? We're all marketing. We're all like pushing profitable business. And
It's
guess
very
what?
true.
Right? It's what you say. Inclusive marketing drives profitable businesses. And if everyone on this call is in the business of running profitable businesses, go get the book. Lola, where can they find you? Where can they interact with all of the brilliance that you hold?
Well, I am LinkedIn through and through. That is my social platform, so you can find me there. Just search my first and last name, Lola Bakare. And then you can also find me on my website, which is responsiblemarketingbook.com.
Lola,
I have
it was
like
an
one blue
absolute
sky, but I wouldn't find me there. Yeah, I mean, it's
blue sky. I feel like someone invited me to Blue Sky and I started to dabble, and then I was like, there's too much stuff going on.
Yeah. And my
So I
profile
hear
on
you.
X is there, but it links you to my LinkedIn because there was one day where I was like, I'm done. I think it was the day you said that childless women shouldn't have the vote, maybe almost 2 years ago now. I was like, oh, well, you don't have my vote. So
I'm like, you waited that long? Because I was done before.
No, I held out for a while, but yeah, no, and I didn't miss it at all. Funny enough, we could keep going, but yeah.
Yes. Well, Lola, it has been an absolute pleasure. Archita told me this was going to be amazing, and she did not lie. So I cannot wait to get the book myself. I'm a self-described introvert, and the thought of doing marketing makes me want to throw up. But you're right. Everybody needs it. So even if you are like me and you have an aversion to all things marketing, please, we encourage you, get the book.
And especially because you will find the light and the truth for especially someone like you. Because what you learn in my book, I know you're trying to do the outro, and I'm like, I'm going to keep this podcast going. I'm sorry. What you'll learn in the book is that you don't have to do marketing. You just have to be of service.
Oh, I love that. You stole the words right out of my mouth. You're taking the things in my chest and just putting words to it, because I think that's what drives so many of us.
That's what it is when it works the best. It's being in service loudly.
Being in service loudly. Well, on that note, ladies, be in service extremely loudly. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until next time.
Thank you, Lola.